Good morning and good afternoon. I am Sarah Butler with the UniLink Group, and we are delighted to have you join us today for Visual South and UniLink sponsored content. Today's session will be recorded and will be shared with participants by email and also shared on our YouTube channel. Before we get started, let me share some housekeeping items. Plan for about 45 minutes of great content. If you have any questions that pop up during the presentation, please share those in the Q&A tool. We will have time during and after the presentation for those questions. So please drop on down, find that Q&A tool at the bottom of your screen. Without further ado, let me introduce you to UniLink's Tony Palermo and Cameron Crawford. Tony, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, and thank everyone for taking time out of your busy day to listen to some information about EDI. I've been at this a long time, and I cannot stress enough that how critical EDI is to the overall digital transformation that your company may be in the process of undergoing or have undergone over the last several years. My job today is to inform, but I got to tell you, I'm a bit passionate about the subject matter, so it may come across as a little salesy from time to time, and I do apologize for that in advance. We should take about 45 minutes. It depends how fast you listen, but I think we'll be able to probably hit that mark as depending upon the number of questions. I do get the first 45 seconds to sort of get on my soapbox a little bit and make a few declarations. First of all, systems beat people 100% of the time. And the second one is that the disruptions that we have had over the last several years, bad news is they'll continue. It's a function of how we handle those. And automation and systems is certainly critical to tamping down the effect a disruption can have on our business. There's a lot of myths out there regarding EDI. I would tell you that depending upon our age, some of those were true 20, 25 years ago. But over the last, say, half a dozen years, the technology has improved substantially. There's qualified personnel that we have that are available and ready to go to work. And a lot of those things that you've heard about EDI, that was then, and this is now. It's a new landscape. It's a new ball game. As a matter of fact, Visual South put out a wonderful article today about ERP systems and integration, and EDI was one of the top applications in the Infor ERP space, and really enjoyed and appreciate that article. The other way to look at EDI is also as an asset that appreciates over time. The more customers, the more transactions that run through an automated EDI application, the more valuable it becomes to your company. So we're going to jump in and talk a little bit first about, we're going to do it manually, about UniLink. Talk a little bit about the who before we get into the what. We've been around 25 plus years in the e-commerce space. We've been an Infor delivery partner for over 17 years in various different capacities. And the most important one on this particular slide is that we are a trusted, proven service-focused EDI provider. And we have been successful. We'll talk a little bit about our growth towards the end of the presentation. But we are 100% cloud-based, have always been since day one. And let's get into the what. So we are literally a department of your company. We are the department right down the hall. A few differentiators is that our customers work directly with our developers. They work with them during the planning and implementation phase and also the support phase. And that's continuity is extremely important. And there's always backup, always someone that you can reach. We don't have some crazy ticketing system where you have to put a ticket in and then maybe you'll get a call back. We answer the phone almost 100% of the time. And when we don't, we call back virtually immediately. Secondly, is that we handle all of the trading partner onboarding, all of the uniqueness that may stop a trading partner from electronically communicating with you via EDI. We'll explain how we take that off the table and can deal with their needs and don't ask them to make any changes, and we can still activate them. And we're more than just developers. We're account managers, project managers. We understand your business. We want to learn as much as we can about your business so that we can be there during the implementation phase and post-implementation. So, question is, do you need EDI? Well, why would you need EDI? Well, for some customers, it's a defensive project. Somebody has made a declaration that says, we want to communicate with you via EDI, and if you want to keep our business or if you want us to continue to supply product to you, then you have to communicate with us via EDI. Some customers take a very proactive strategy, and being proactive is always less expensive and more effective than being reactive. But they take a more proactive strategy because they know it's a key component to expanding their market. And then, of course, it's a disruption avoider. It minimizes or mitigates things like COVID or supply chain conflicts. And if you in the news, you can see that there's potentially always something around the corner that if you're automated and your people can get information electronically, no matter where they are, it certainly does tamp down the effect. The other question is when. Well, there are certain triggers that would dictate when. We firmly believe that the time is now, and if anything, if you're not planning on implementing EDI, you may get behind the power curve. It could be, as I mentioned earlier, a vendor requirement. It could be personnel limitations that you may have started implementation of EDI and the person in charge of that either retired or left the company. You don't want to go through the retraining efforts again. It's a good time to look at a managed service. Or you could be migrating into the cloud, or you could be migrating from another ERP system into the Infor family of ERPs. So, we try to understand exactly the current state, and it's hard to address an audience that's across all three of these, but I'm sure there are some customers that are manual and are going to continue manually processing. That's the do nothing option. There's companies that have already invested in an in-house owned solution. Things have changed, and now they want to look for a managed services or another option. And then there's another set who are with an outsourced managed service provider, and they're looking to make a change. Now, I would say from left to right, continuing in a manual mode is really no bueno. It's the highest cost option and probably the mid-risk range. Investing in your own in-house solution is admirable, but we'll talk about the total cost of ownership is extremely high, and the risk is high because if there is a change in personnel, you're constantly in that training mode. Some customers have their own in-house system because they had to, They went kicking and screaming, and they have a few customers, and they're in a sort of a stalled position, and that's certainly a very high cost position to be in. And then, of course, the outsource option is the lowest cost and the lowest risk. Um, it has a proven implementation process and more details to follow. So it's really important as you're going through the process of selecting and determining how far to go into the EDI application. But it's really important to get your facts gathered, and that is, how many trading partners do you have that require EDI, and how many trading partners that are out there? What are their requirements? What documents are you exchanging or do you plan on exchanging? The estimated transaction volume is very important to determining the proper payback and ROI. Time frame, is there a particular pending event that's pushing the schedule? And do you have the resources that are required? What are your ERP integration capabilities? How much customization and business processes can you do, and which ones are critical? And of course, scalability is always an issue. Now, as far as the ROI and the payback, we have tools that can analyze that, but it does require some detail to be loaded into that tool. And I'm sure that if you want to do that, we can certainly follow up with a separate call with our sales force, and they can do that. But the net is what you're looking for is sort of the Amazon experience. You think about when you go on to Amazon, you immediately can go and create a request for a product, which is really a PO. They'll acknowledge that request, and then you get an advanced shipping notice, and then you pay. All of that is done within the application, and it's all electronic. That's the type of experience that our current and future generations are looking for. That's what I call the Tony Soprano application. It's bada bing, bada boom, forget about it. It's done. That's the most important thing to remember today about why EDI is a solution that you should be implementing within your company. So once you determine that, what EDI solution is the right one? And we discussed the three options. What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Certainly error reduction is always a big one. Publications would suggest that when a company implements EDI, they see a 62% drop in errors. How do I determine the cost? We talked about that. We have a process that we can take you through to determine the ROI. But if you're considering doing this in-house, or you're currently doing this in-house, you have to look at all the different costs associated with it, the hardware, software, labor, different fees, including mapping, van and transaction fees. What do you need to get started? Do you have the bandwidth? Do you want to invest in people and backups? What are the time and service considerations, the project management, the setup? If you're going through this for the first time versus using a professional implementation team that has done this many times and knows where to look and how to minimize any disruption to your company. So we talked about before, if you look at the three options, we said earlier, manual is just not where you want to be. The manual cost of entering a PO is about $15, plus or minus, depending upon the number of line items. That's unrefutable. you have to look at the cost of lost business when documents sit in people's inboxes, or they sit in boxes, physical paper, and they don't get processed in a timely fashion. The cost of errors and delays downstream, just the overall capital expense that is associated as we move into the in-house solutions. And there we get a whole myriad of different costs and ongoing integration issues that have to be considered. In the managed services option, there's no CapEx. The barrier to entry is significantly low. It's a transactional pricing model. And every transaction that gets processed actually pays back the initial costs of setup. The ease of expansion, and of course, the rapid and the size of the ROI. So again, when you're looking at these three options, you really want to make sure that you consider the cost. And again, the cost of doing nothing is not zero. If you look at the cost of an error, which is roughly anywhere from $35 to $50 if that error hits downstream, and the cost of physically and manually inputting these documents can be $15 plus. So just some EDI basics. We maybe should have covered this a little bit earlier, but in EDI space, a significant percentage of transactions are what we call the core four: the purchase order acknowledgement, advanced shipping notice, and of course the 810, the invoice. There's a lot of other forms that can be included, and a lot of our customers are very sophisticated in the different forms that they use to run their business. But 80%, 85% of all transactions are in that core four. So the flow of information, if you're looking at this from your vendor standpoint, you send them an 850, they send back to you a PO acknowledgement, an advanced shipping notice, and eventually an invoice. If it's converse, and you're sending information to your customers, then it's just the reverse. You're getting a PO inbound electronically, and you're sending out a PO acknowledgement, an advanced shipping notice, and an invoice. So this is a pretty good diagram because it really kind of shows the impact of EDI. And of course, you're on the left-hand side. You're the proposed UniLink customer. We connect you to our data center, and then it's our job to work with your customers and suppliers or buying groups and to make sure that we get them implemented. Now, they may not want to do EDI, but that doesn't matter how far they take the electronic interchange into their ERP system. What matters is you're seeing electronic information coming in, and you're putting electronic information back out. Now, the first step, of course, is integrating with our data center, and that's where in the Sightline world, Ion is certainly a key component that is supplied by Infor. And in the visual space, there's a product called DERP, D-E-R-P, that facilitates that integration. And Cameron, can I get you to comment on that?
Yeah, so with our visual clients, we have so far two main ways of sending data in and receiving data out. And it's usually through file or APIs. And the file format is VMDI, although that's no longer supported through Infor. really. So often we go through APIs, and one of the tools that we use is distributed ERP. And so that's some of the options we have for visual. And there's probably more options out there to work with Visual South to determine which connection would work best. But that's those are the two main ways so far we connect to visual ERPs.
And so you see over on the right-hand side, any format, any ERP, any document, any protocol. That's important because the success of an EDI platform is all about the adoption rate. It's getting your key suppliers, your key buying groups, your key customers on the platform. And to do that, we have a product called Smart Maps, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. But that allows us to make a statement that says, we're not going to ask any of your trading partners to make a change in their ERP system. We're going to deal with any of those types of business processes or exceptions that you need to see or that they need to see on their end to successfully complete that communication from you to them in an electronic format. So we will talk about that. But again, I want to emphasize that the adoption rate is extremely important. And we're already connected, by the way, to all the big box stores, Amazon, Walmart, CVS, Target, Walgreens, Home Depot, Lowe's, and the list goes on. So we know how to connect to all of the big box stores that are out there if that's required. So we mentioned Smart Maps, and Smart Maps really helps ensure the adoption rate, again, because we don't ask your trading partners to make any ERP changes that may delay or prevent them from going forward. And basically, our Smart Maps is a translation process that can match the ERP requirements of your trading partners, again, preventing them from having to make any changes and improving the adoption rate. We can create alerts for discrepancies within the Smart Map. We can deal with exceptions that can be created, multiple ship tos, drop ship, convert units of measures, calculating date offsets. Whatever the change needs to be to fit your business process and your trading partner's process can be dealt with within the Smart Map. Again, Cameron, I'll ask you to comment on that.
Yeah, sure. So often we'll have clients that want us to make sure that the prices are correct, and they'll have issues with some big corporations where the prices aren't synced up. And it's a real challenge to get some of the bigger corporations to even respond about prices. So often we'll put in a workaround, or we'll put in a customization that checks the prices. We'll send out alerts or notifications so that our clients know what the price discrepancy is so they can deal with it, or we'll work with the big corporations to solve these pricing issues, which could be syncing prices and finding ways to do that, or even using EDI documents to synchronize prices if the big corporations will allow it. And then there's other things too, for visual clients, checking rev levels, and then all other clients checking prices, checking unit of measures, checking various part numbers and setting up cross references. That's also a pretty big deal, because sometimes big corporations will send part numbers that aren't named correctly, and we will step in to make sure that the part number is correct, synchronize those. And so what this does is it prevents a lot of manual work that has to be done on your side, our client side, of price checking, rev level checking, so on and so forth. And those are just some examples, but that's where our Smart Maps really shine, is we prevent manual work by programmatically making business rules so that a person doesn't have to manually apply and enforce these business rules.
Right. We have some Smart Maps that are straightforward, maybe 20, 30 lines of code. And then we have smart maps that actually go out via APIs to databases, read-only databases, and bring back and compare data within the smart map before the transaction can proceed. So it can be as sophisticated, and for instance, in the auto industry, it's extremely sophisticated process when they're dealing with their vendors. This might be a good time to see if we have any questions in the queue. Any questions?
I had a question. This is Philip Schiffer from Accurus Aerospace. So would an example of a functionality of a smart map be if we have an EDI connection for purchase orders from a customer, and that customer places a PO that may be inside of our quoted manufacturing lead time? Would that something that we would show up as an exception that we could either accept or reject via a smart map? Is that some type of functionality?
Yeah, definitely. And this isn't the same situation, but I have a client I'm working with now. They do forecast documents, and a forecast document has one item with several dates, and we're doing all kinds of customizations for the dates. For example, if the forecast arrives on a Thursday, only break out orders for the next Tuesday. So in your situation, if there's a date that's not within your lead time, we could definitely customize something like that, because that's a lot more elegant of a problem than some of them that we customize for.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, does that help?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and we could just, make the customization. There's all sorts of things we can do. Email alerts, stop processing the file. We can work with the trading partner to see if we can change the process. And so, yeah, those are some various ways we could find a solution for that problem with lead time dates.
Thanks, Ken.
Would we have the option in that scenario to either accept the purchase order and have it entered in through the EDI process, or reject it? And if it was rejected, send the acknowledgement document back to the customer saying that it was not accepted?
Yes. Yep. There would be a way we would work it out with them. And a lot of times big corporations, I say that, or trading partners, they'll have their own way they would like it to be handled. But yes, we can. And what I mean is we can find a way to notify them that the document was rejected, or we can send it over, you can accept it. And any of the combinatoric, it's almost like a combinatorics problem, but any of the combinations of those we can also do.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
So another component to a successful EDI platform, of course, is the customer portal. And in this case, our portal is basically your view into your EDI platform, where you can build in any type of exception notification or exception reporting criteria. So this will show every transaction that runs through the system, and it's a WYSIWYG type of view. You can pick and choose how you want to sort, how you want to view the data. But the process that I really like about it is this is where you would set exception reporting. If a transaction should fail, who do you want to notify, and how do you want them notified, and what data do you want to supply? Now, we'll also see that transaction fail, and oftentimes before we're even contacted, one of our folks is already on it. And typically, I would say the majority of a transaction failing is a change that one of your trading partners have made on their end. And so we contact them, find out what that is. Don't ask them to make a change in their ERP system, but adjust the map to handle that accordingly. So customer portal, whether you're choosing to do this internally yourself or through a managed services like ours, that customer portal is extremely, extremely important. And again, on a separate call, you would like to get a live demo, we can certainly do that. It might take 15 minutes on a call to go through the application from top to bottom. So this is sort of the components of a successful EDI implementation. If you look at the circle on the right, it shows the different functions that have to be met, from gathering data to onboarding, dealing with the mapping issues, the testing, and then the go live, and then subsequently in production. And you can see that most, if not all of the labor, all of the work is the responsibility of the managed service provider, i.e. UniLink. What we ask for on the front end is to get all the detail associated with connecting you to our data center with all the exceptions and all the detail and all the business processes that you want to see. And then, of course, we like to get a list of customers, trading partners, vendors with contact information. And then we'll send an email out so they can, and we ask you to send an email out. We'll provide the verbiage for it so that they know when we call that we're not some crazy organization trying to get them to do something they're not supposed to do. So it's a soft introduction, and then we take it from there. We gather their requirements. We start their mapping process. We start the testing process with them, moving into the production environment. So what are the benefits of EDI? Well, I mean, data quality is a big issue. Not only the timeliness of getting the data into the system, but reducing the errors. As I mentioned before, you should expect a 62% drop in errors. And the next is that we talked about is the defender of disruptions. When things are moving faster through your systems and can be accessed by your folks, and the quality is improved, those types of disruptions get mitigated. Faster order fulfillment, enhanced data security, operational efficiency. I mean, that Amazon experience that we talked about before is essential. Strong customer and vendor relationships, and being able to integrate programmatically standards and compliance into not only the mapping process, but to make sure that you are in fact in compliance with all of the technology that is available. So one of the questions we get is, give us some examples of some, maybe some unique things that customers have asked for and that we've delivered. And I'm going to ask Cameron to kind of comment on this, since he's really in the thick of things as a developer and a project manager. So Cameron, take it away.
Yeah. So referencing a recent client again, doing a lot of customizations, a lot of them have been alerts about price discrepancies, ship to discrepancies. So there's ship tos that go to your address, and it really matters when you start doing the advanced ship notices so that your orders go to the correct places. But it's been a lot of customization, checking part numbers, and also checking dates and adjusting dates. For example, well, we were just talking about the aerospace sector and then lead times and setting a date and sending an alert. And that would be something that's possible to do. But what I've been doing recently is actually, in a similar context, not accepting based on a date, but actually adjusting dates to where, okay, so a certain date comes in, you have a promised delivery date and a scheduled ship date. And one of the trading partners was sending both of the same days. So you would promise to ship something the same day you scheduled, and that's really hard to do. So the client asked me to build a cross-reference and adjust the dates according to the ship to ID. So that's where the ship to ID ties into this. So I go in, I check the ship to ID, I go to the cross-reference, say, based on this ship to ID, how do I adjust these dates? That way, the promised delivery date and the scheduled ship date aren't the same, and they get a reasonable amount of time to meet their shipping dates. And so that there's customizations like that. I also check rev levels, which is something I think probably unique to visual, more so than Sightline, but I just make sure that the diagrams are synced up. And for all of these things, they're basically discrepancy alerts. And if there are any discrepancy, there's an event or a trigger to an event to where there's a notification or some kind of solution or remedy applied to those situations. And again, it can be unit of measure, it can be prices, it can be ship to IDs, so on and so forth. And this really helps with manual entry and enforcing business rules so that on the client side, there's a lot more free time and convenience given to them so that they don't have to manually go through the notifications or whatever customization we come up with. It helps them realize there's discrepancies and deal with them without having to manually adjust and deal with the different discrepancies. So those are some recent customizations that I've done and some of the customizations we often do.
And our maps are a fixed price so that we know if it's very complex, it's the same price if it's not very complex. Now, there probably are some exceptions out there that would require some discussion depending upon the amount of lines of code and the complexity and the time spent. But I would say the majority, if not super majority, are all billed at the same rate. This is an interesting, this is sort of a byproduct of a customer having a problem. And we looked at the EDI forms that are available and we're able to put together a solution for that customer. And it's available now in some of the ERP systems that we support. But you know, you ever get in a situation where you receive multiple POs with the same PO number from a customer and manually having to decipher, especially if that PO is already in process, what the changes are, keeps people away from their functions and away from their primary roles. It could impact job scheduling and inventory management. It certainly could introduce delays or incomplete orders, lost revenue, lost business. So we came up with a purchase order analyzer. And what it does is it looks for those duplicate POs and reports on those inbound 850s. And the report provides details and a summary of the PO line item changes and the differences in the detail of those changes. So it takes a lot of the time and the complication out of matching multiple lengthy purchase orders sort of off the table. It certainly helps with setting deadlines and cutoffs and rejections based on the rules for those specific customers and and automatically notifying. So that's a pretty cool application. There's another one that's a rebate analyzer that distributors use. It's the same thing. They automate the rebate request. And if there's a match and it gets processed, it's fine. If it does not get matched, then the exception shows up and they can deal with the exceptions only. So as part of the summary, the criteria that matters is first of all, I've been told for many, many years that when you're working on any type of application, or even if you're building a house, that there's time, there's cost, and there's quality. And they always tell you can only have two. If you want it fast and you want the quality to be high, the cost is going to be high. And you can only have two of those three. When you implement EDI, you actually get all three. You get a tremendous amount of time back for your staff. You certainly lower your cost significantly. And of course, the quality goes up. So the question becomes, why managed services? Why is managed services the best option? Well, there's no CapEx required, no software to purchase, no hardware to purchase. It's all success-based pricing. You may it may cost you 50 cents to do a transaction via EDI versus $15 to do it manually. You can see there where volume does make a big difference. You're dealing with a company that has a proven implementation process. We provide custom EDI technology tailored to your business processes as well as your trading partner to improve on the adoption rate. Ongoing communication with you and your trading partners is provided. We have automated and proactive exception reporting and correction tool. We have a state-of-the-art portal and an impeccable service reputation. Service is critical because we are in the middle of commerce for your customer, and we take that very seriously. It's part of our DNA. It's an end-to-end ownership. No pointing of fingers. There's only one neck to choke, and we take that very responsibly. And again, we answer the phone. That's sort of an anomaly these days. Or we answer an email if it comes in via email, if there is a problem to be solved. And it's certainly very easy to budget. We are in the distribution manufacturing space with many different Infor products as well as non-Infor products. This shows a little bit about what's been going on, especially, when we got into pandemic time, we kind of thought we would see a little bit of flattening of growth. So we were prepared for that, but we had a lot of work to do. So we were still adding resources, and man, did it take off. And you can see that we went from a certain slope to a much greater slope over the last 3 or 4 years. And so it's been a very good time. Existing customers are growing. Their trading partners are growing in transactions, and we're adding new customers all the time. So we're seeing tremendous amount of growth over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. So as they say, that's our story, and we're sticking to it. I hope you found it to be interesting. I don't know if we had any other questions, either online or from anyone. I'll pause for a few seconds in case we do.
And as a reminder, folks, you can either just unmute yourself, or there's also the little Q&A tool you can use.
And we're 44 minutes into it, and we said it would take about 45. So you guys must be great listeners.
I had a question that of just maybe lack of understanding.
Okay.
So a lot of our customers are already using EDIs to send us information would UniLink be able to interact with those EDIs and process that information, or would we have to request our customers to change over to UniLink?
So we would be able to process it. And when you say change over to UniLink, there's often a migration process that we can do, but did you have something in mind where that might be difficult to do, or?
It's one of the biggest problems for our company is that every single customer is kind of unique in how they send us the information and how we have to process it.
Yeah.
And I know that one of our concerns is that our customers aren't always very malleable. And so if we were introducing a completely new system that they had to interact with, I feel like there would be some worry of pushback. Whereas if it could just interpret the data that we're already receiving from our customers, it might be an easier change.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So during the migration process, we try to test without interacting. As long as we have sample data, often we can lock onto it, code out the maps. And the only thing that we would probably have to do is maybe switch a connection. But I don't think it would be a huge paradigm shift for them to where we have to get them to start using a whole new system. I think more it would be us mapping in between, figuring out what the mappings are. And then, so for them, they would, all they would see is they're receiving the same data. It would just change on the mapping side. And maybe we'd have to change a connection. That's usually how the migrations go. So at most, it would probably be them changing a connection, but not using a whole new system to where now they're disgruntled about having to, you know, the whole change management process and becoming frustrated with that. We would definitely look into it and communicate with them and have meetings with you beforehand to see what the sample data is that you have, what we can do so that we can make it as relatively painless as possible and not upset the apple cart on their side. But we often do these migrations to where it's just that, at most a connection change.
It seems to me like it's easier to deal with that situation than it is to deal with a customer who has an antiquated ERP system, and we have to figure out how to get data in and out of there.
Yes, and even it's I think a more convenient process than starting brand new, because if you already have the contacts, the connection, and that saves a lot of time already. But Victoria, does that help answer your question, or do you have any more questions about that?
No, that was definitely a help. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, you're most welcome.
Yep. So if you're interested in advancing the conversation and you wanted to get more into the ROI and the payback process and the pricing, we certainly have applications that can help with that, and we'd love to talk to you about it. If you'd like more information and like to see a demo of the portal, a live demo of the portal, we can certainly arrange for that to continue the conversation. But regardless of whether it's UniLink or not, I would say that advancing into the EDI space is extremely critical. Companies that I have worked for, that we have either gone public or that we have sold at a premium, one of the keys to that was the advanced automation and digital integration that we put in place for these companies that made them more efficient, higher quality, and certainly much quicker turnaround turns in their inventory process. So I can't tell you how much we appreciate you taking time to sort of listen to our perspective on this. I know it was kind of at the 10,000 foot level, but we're happy to pursue any detailed conversations that would make you comfortable. And again, I would like to thank Visual South for helping set this up, and for a great article today. If you haven't seen it yet, it's a wonderfully crafted article on applications that have been integrated with Infor ERP systems. So with that, I'll say good day and thank you very much.